All right. Let's see how it goes. Let's see how it goes. What is up, internet friends? I wrote the tweets. I'm grabbing the link. YouTube made it the same name as last week, but actually it's almost appropriate. I should change it, but maybe I will, maybe I won't. It's been kind of a crazy day. Maybe I'll roll with the same title once again. I'm just adjusting the tweet. There's no way for me to do this before I start streaming. That's just how it is. Should I call it? I'm titling it live right now. I guess that's a little unprofessional. But should I call it just CMYK Aesthetic Edition? I mean, that's really what it is. I have some ideas for what we'll paint, but I kind of like leaving it up in the air. I'm just going to call it that. Boom. I didn't even get the TV emoji. We're really just rolling in live right now. Let's see. Got everything working. Gonna move some windows around right now. Oh geez, doglet, don't go under there. Come on. Come on over here. Come over here. Come over here. Come over here. Come over here. I got my dog in the room. We're gonna see how this goes. Yeah, just hang out in your bed. Hang out in your bed. Alright. Let's do it. No one's here yet. I'm just straight up gonna talk to myself, I guess. I mean, honestly, I'd be kind of cool with it. It's a public video. Okay. Okay, let's see how this goes with my dog here. Yeah, I know, buddy. Alright, no one's here yet. Let people come in and then we'll get this going right now. Let's see. Okay. Okay. I have my dog in my lap. I have my dog in my lap. It's a very atypical week at the studio. I don't know how this is going to go. My wife has her friend here, and the dog hates people, so I have the dog in the studio. But the dog is also very needy, so I literally have this pretty large dog in my lap right now. And I don't know exactly how this is going to go down. But let's see. Let's see if I can get her to come down here. Just hang out here. Just hang out here. Hang out in your bed. Everything's cool. All right. It's been a crazy week. I have some crazy news I really want to tell you guys, but I can't yet, but I will eventually. So yeah, otherwise let's just get this going, and then we'll jump on in. I'm excited to get some painting done right now, to be completely honest with you. I am amped about it. Let's see. No one's here yet. I'm open to no one being here, but I'm wondering if something's wrong with the streaming or something. Am I on the right channel? I am on the right channel. Okay. Let's see. Cool. Just gonna set some things up while people come in. Boom, Bell Gang, what's up? Perfect. Perfect. We got people here. All right, nice. So we'll hang for a second, just let people come in, and then we'll get it started. This might be kind of a fast and loose episode. I'll explain once I put the intro on and everything. But how are you guys doing? I've been doing insane. I've had an absolutely insane week over here at the studio. It's been freaking nuts, honestly. But everything's cool. Everything's good. I can't really complain. It's annoying because I probably will say this a few times, but like I have a bunch of life news
that I really want to tell you guys, but I can't. So I have to just be enigmatic and say that things are happening over here. Positive, though. Positive things. So I can't complain about that. And we'll get this going. Let's see, what kind of anecdotes do I have going on in the beginning? I was doing a lot of research while I was cleaning my house, things like that. I was poking into some more American, like, Christian stuff. I have this gap in my studies, in, like, my knowledge base. I have this gap from, you know, I feel like I drew it on Twitter a little while ago. I drew this, just took 15 minutes and just drew a total timeline of Christian history, kind of as a joke, but I also was thinking, you know, I wonder how I could sketch that out in like 10, 15 minutes. And I feel like if I had 30, 45 minutes, you know, I can kind of go through, and not that I'm an expert or anything, obviously, kind of the opposite, but I can generally sketch out, like, oh, here's, you know, kind of why this happened, and this is, you know, the big picture, this kind of played into this and stuff, but I have this gap. It's like a big gray area in my ability to flesh out Christian history from basically right when the pilgrim boats leave Europe to Pentecostal stuff. There's a big gray area there, which is ironic because I'm American. That's like America time, at least that's what I'm thinking of for Christian development or development, whichever. And it's just like a gray area. So I'm kind of digging in there and seeing how I want to flesh it out. And I know some things, like I'm like, oh, this guy, like George Whitefield, and oh yeah, like the Great Awakening, and like, oh yeah, like this group and this group, but it doesn't fit into like a cohesive timeline in my mind. So in terms of studies and stuff, that might be the next area that I really hit. And I was looking at some Seventh-day Adventist stuff. They're pretty cool. It's kind of hard because normally my strategy, which has been really successful, honestly, at least for me feeling like I understand things, my strategy has been to find like a break or a node and zoom in there and work out in both directions from these nice little notches in history. So I did that with early Christian history. That's pretty easy because obviously you just start with like Jesus and see how far you can go forward, you know. And then I did it with the Reformation. You know, I could jump right into the Reformation and say, oh, perfect. Did it with a few different like schisms. Schisms are really good in my opinion because I can jump in and be like, oh, boom, here's this disagreement. You know, what led up to this and what happened after it. But I'm kind of having a hard time grappling with like a little node in the American colonial to Civil War like development. I kind of have to pick one spot and like work in and out from there. So thinking about Great Awakening, I don't know if you guys know what that is. Or I might just go through with like the different groups, the different Christian groups, and like pick one and kind of flesh out a timeline. So that's kind of what I'm doing over here. The art history really helps. I think also in retrospect, the art history really helps me feel like I'm understanding the history. But then in colonial America, I don't have the art history to go off of either. So that also makes it more difficult. Like for normal Christian history, I can be like, oh, 1200, I know what the art's like. Oh, so that's what the theology is like. That makes sense. Or like, boom, Michelangelo, the Renaissance. I have these little like nodes, you know. But for the American stuff, yeah, and I don't know if people know about art history. It also fits the theme of the show. But for American art history at that time, it's kind of just like a wash. Like our painters were not exceptionally making huge waves at that time. We were kind of just trying to have like any portrait painting or images going on at all. So it's also hard for me to latch on. So it's been interesting, but it's also something that I'm super into because I feel like that spirit, we talked about this a little bit last week, but that spirit of, you know, trying to figure it out, like we're in America, new territory, is so intrinsic to the American like spiritual life, whether I agree with like every single person or not. So it's kind of like where my eyes are turned study-wise in a way, I guess. I've also been, this is the last anecdote I'll tell, and then we're just going to pull the trigger. We're going to make it happen right now. But the other thing is that I posted about it on Twitter again. I try not to tell the same stories, but, you know, I could flesh it out a little bit. But I found this like really awesome house, and it had this giant like cell phone tower broadcasting pole right up next to it on the side, and I got really sketched out about it, and I didn't want to live there, so I had to justify it to myself. So I was doing all this research about electricity and 5G and all this stuff and how it like affects humans and all that stuff. So I got this book. It's called The Invisible Rainbow, and I just feel like reading it, I'm gonna go like one step a little bit crazier because it's all about how electricity affects human biology and stuff. And I read just the introduction, which is like 2 pages, And I was like, man, this is going to be nuts, dude. He was talking about like how like certain diseases just like popped up in the 1800s, and finding these doctors who had never even seen like, you know, all these super common diseases before, and saying it has to do with electricity and all this stuff. And I was holding the book and I was like, man, I'm really going to go. It's been a while since I've taken one step further into being that guy. And I was holding the book and I was like, this is a one-way ticket. Once I crack like 50 to 75 pages in this book, I can feel that I'm just going to take one step further into being that guy. But anyway, that's enough of my little pre-show. Maybe you can feel I'm a little distracted in a sense, but I'll tell you why in a second. So let's do it. I'm going to click on the new intro button. I hope it's the right button. Season 3. Progressing nicely, I think. I hope you feel the same way. All right. What's up? What is up, my people? So let's do it. Let's get this going right now. You know, every week I say, you know, there's a creative aspect to the show. There's the meta creative aspect to the show. In the meta creative domain, we run the spectrum from, wow, I really made like a 30-minute Illustrator presentation. Let's make this perfect and 100% tight, to we're winging it. Improv, you know, we're just kind of seeing what happens right now. That's kind of cool too. And now this week, we've been over here for season 3. I thought we'd stay over there, but we're over here a little bit. Not because of lack of preparation. I just thought it would be cool. And also on top of that, we have a special guest who you might hear on the show. My dog is here in the studio. I don't like to make the show about me. It's not about me. It's about the art. But sometimes my life is relevant in a way. So I have someone staying here. Talked about this last week. My dog doesn't like being around people, so normally it's been fine. But the dog is here in the studio with me, and actually she took my chair. I have this chair that's right behind me, and the dog is in the chair, and it only holds one person, so the dog took my chair. And it's funny because, you know, there's always a spiritual dimension to everything if you're, you know, living in a universe infused with the presence of God and us, you know, seeking out higher spiritual things. Because it's funny, the dog is aggressive, right? But the aggression is really fear. It's really fear that manifests as aggression. So it's funny because she can hear the voices in the other room. You can't hear them, but you know she could hear them before, and it's a fear response. So once I cut through the aggression, there's just fear there, and she's sitting in the chair and literally is pressing up against my knees as I'm standing because she wants to feel safe. So it's really cute. And I just thought I would tell you that because it's a nice little image. You know, we can keep it just to the painting, but life is also fun and interesting. So you might hear her. She does this thing called bear talking. That's what I call it, where she like makes these like bear, like Chewbacca noises when she wants to like talk to me. So you might hear that or you might not. Anyway, though, on to the painting show itself. So yeah, I see someone asked me something in the chat. If you guys want to ask me stuff, I'm totally down. I do have something prepared in the sense of what I think we're going to be doing right now. So let's jump into that. We'll start getting painting, and then we'll see how it goes down. So anyway, you can see over here on the side. So last week, we hit the CMYK colors, and I talked about it a little bit. I thought it would be cool to poke into a different palette. You know, it's a little bit more techy. It's a little bit more modern. It's a totally different way of mixing colors and interacting with colors. We did one episode with these where I realized that really mixing them and letting them do their thing together is probably what's going to be the most fruitful. We did one episode where just totally going loose cannon style, letting them mix all together. And that went pretty well. And I thought I'd try and tame it up a little bit. You know, I thought I would try and hone in that energy of just the totally wet, everything's mixing together, flowing around color situation. And to do that, I grabbed these paints over here. So this is not, just a little technical note, this is not gouache. So normally we've been using gouache, right? And this paint, if you get it wet, it will re-wet and spill out again. So that's spill out again from itself, you know. The glue is water soluble. So that's just relevant for us because if I take this black right here and I draw up a whole scene and situation, if I hit it with water, I suspect actually, we'll find out in a second, the black will re-wet and fill out the picture again. So I have these paints here. This is acrylic paint, so it's a totally different binder. It's a totally different glue. Acrylic is basically plastics. This is like plastic glue, essentially holding the color in here together. So I have two options. I can use this, and if I draw with this, the glue in here will not re-wet. It'll stay, and I can maybe do big washes of color over it. So we'll see how it's going to go. Let's see if I end up using that. It's also funny, just last little anecdote before we get started, is I have this huge box of acrylic paint. And this is a really good brand of acrylic paint. It's called Golden. It's probably one of the best ones, actually. I've had this huge box here for years and years and years. I never use it because I never use this kind of paint anymore. And I thought, perfect, I'll get black. We'll do black lines with the acrylic, and then we'll get the colors going with the gouache. And I went through this whole box. I dumped it out on my floor, and I don't have black. Because my painting mindset, when I got all these colors, like probably like 8 years ago now, honestly, was that I didn't use black. I was more like, oh, I'm like a cool classical painter. I don't need black. I can mix black if I need it. You know, I'm more like impressionist style. I'm like Renaissance style. I don't need black paint, so I don't have black. So I dumped out this whole thing to find one color, and I didn't even have it. That's dramatic irony for you in the studio. But anyway, I wanted to jump in and use an image. So I didn't want to totally 100% wing it. The other interesting thing going on with me right now, I guess this episode has a little bit more biographic information than normal, but I've been looking to buy a house. I'm becoming the 30-year-old boomer meme if you hang out on that part of the internet. And it's been totally insane, honestly. I think I mentioned it last week, but I thought I would get laughed out of the bank because, like, I don't make money, obviously. But, yeah, so anyway, I've been looking for a house. So I thought I'd draw a house and we could jump off from, like, house imagery. There's something very interesting and archetypal about the image of a home or a house. It's one of the first things kids draw. If you do like psychological analyzing of little kids' drawings, people always talk about drawing a house and what the house signifies and if there's trees and if it's a nice house or like an evil house. And there's something very archetypal about home in that sense. I think that probably part of the reason why kids draw houses so much in their homes. I used to work with kids a lot in a few different official and unofficial capacities, and they do spontaneously do it even without being prompted. There's a few things that kids naturally gravitate towards drawing. I think it's because in a way like the house or the home is a type of axis mundi. In case people don't know about comparative religion stuff, religions usually have like some axis mundi, some center around which you orient. Sometimes it's a principle, sometimes it's a person, but most normal, or a place or something. But most typically it's a place. It's a physical thing. So like in a lot of pagan religions, the axis mundi, you have this like cosmic world tree. That's how you orient yourself in the universe. You're literally imagining, or maybe it's real, you know. I don't think it's real, but they did. That at the center of the universe, there's this big cosmic tree as an axis. If you're Catholic, the Vatican is kind of like an axis mundi. You're oriented around the Vatican. And maybe the Pope is even kind of like an axis mundi. If you're Muslim, really probably the best example, then Mecca is like a full-on axis mundi to the point where you probably even have stuff in your home that's like pointed towards Mecca. So anyway, it's a physical like orienting principle that serves as like north or really more like the center of your compass. And the home is kind of like that. So I thought we'd kind of just go in and maybe I'd loosely draw in this home and then we can fill it in with like a big wash of like the CMYK colors and just see how it goes. So that's how I'm going to jump off right now. And I'm not going to put it in a shape. Last time we did a circle, but I kind of just want to jump in and see how it goes, kind of free-floating style. So I'm just going to come in here. It's kind of interesting also. I think this is part of like the psychological element of living in like an apartment or something. It's like that becomes your axis mundi, but you share it with like a ton of other people. So I'm just going to come in, and the first mark, yeah, I know, it's okay. And the first mark, maybe I'll even paint in the dog. That would be kind of cool, actually. So I'm just going to paint in this kind of black horizon line. And I have no idea how the colors are going to interact with the black, so I guess we'll just kind of see how it goes. And how are you guys doing? I hope everything's going well on your end.
Things have been nuts over here. I think I'm just running around. Hey, come here. Come here. It's okay. Okay. I should just paint the dog, honestly. So let's see. Actually, I probably am going to do that. So I'll paint in like a smaller house down here. We'll just go like archetypal house status. Cool. I'm going to throw in the kind of like one-story house. And I've seen a lot of like really cool houses too, actually. There's kind of a weird like symbolism present in the house. You can kind of feel like the energy of the home when you go in there. I've seen a bunch of really old ones. I've seen a bunch of new ones. I'm going to come down here. Cool. And I'm going to use this as kind of like a jumping off point to build off of for the rest of the image. So I got this kind of like basic house in here. It's probably like the most simple house you could possibly get going. Yeah. And I'm going to throw in, boom. But of course, I don't want to have it just be like totally normal. So how I'm going to drop this into a larger drawing is really the question. My dog is displeased with the fact that she's confined to the studio. Okay, hold on 1 second. I'm sorry that this might be a kind of unprofessional episode. You know, normally I try and bring it 100% together, but I have the dog here. Perfect. This is also kind of a creative note, but I have been kind of trying to use the show as, you know, I kind of just let whatever happens, you know what I mean? I don't get like too stressed about anything. It's kind of like art in general, how it is. And maybe I will put in the dog. Maybe that is like how we're going to take this picture right now. That'll let me get some more interesting like darker black areas in. So I actually am going to do that right now. This will be kind of like winging it symbolism episode. Someone said, I came across your sidebar Twitter thread from a few years back. Did any article come out of it? I'm terrified and intrigued and must know more. Cheers. No, I didn't write anything about it. I got kind of like obsessed with it, and all of a sudden I was like waking up at like, you know, extra early to go read these accounts of like demonic like psychedelia, and I kind of had to like step back from it a little bit. But I do want to write something more official about it. It's kind of interesting because I made that like huge thread, and I felt like I really like said what I had to say about it. And there's a thing about like constantly posting and broadcasting online where it's like at a certain point I never want to become like a caricature of myself. Like once I can feel myself falling into certain patterns, I kind of just move on and like try and do something new. You know what I mean? Like everyone knows like some social media account or something where it's like, you know, you can imagine like you're just basically saying the same thing for like multiple years straight, and like I said, you become kind of like an obvious like caricature of yourself, and I really don't want to do that. So I put down the like criticism of psychedelics and DMT thing for a minute, but I think it is time to pick it back up again. The space and like the ideas around it have really progressed a lot, which is super interesting. I mean, even the whole aliens or demons thing, at the time, we haven't talked about that in a while, but at the time I had to dig pretty hard to even like find that. You know, I was like I am still a weird ideas connoisseur in a way. I like to think I'm pretty up on the weird ideas that are percolating around the internet, and I had never heard that before at the time. But now it's like everyone posts that. Everyone's talking about it all the time. I don't really know if like the psychedelic conversation in space has progressed at all. You know what I mean? I feel like that's still kind of at the same point. I mean, there's no really new archetypes. There's no really new... I mean, even Joe Rogan, does he really talk about ayahuasca and DMT and that stuff anymore? I wouldn't know, because I don't watch his show. Okay, cool. And let's see, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put one of those, like, towers in here. I got this space. So since we're kind of doing a little bit of a drawing thing for a second, when I do my drawings, one thing I like to do is focus in on interesting spaces and how I can utilize them. So, like, for example, right here, I have this gap. So it's like I can just put a line here that can function as a horizon, and now I have, like, a new space to work into in here. So I'm always thinking about utilizing the different spaces and what I can do with them that's kind of atypical and interesting, basically. Sort of like playing with the picture plane. That's how I would put it. I'm going to put a tower in here. It's been a theme
floating around in my mind a little bit recently. After I saw that house, I, did all this research about the towers and everything, and then sometimes when I go for walks with the dog, I go pretty far away from my house, so I was pretty far away, and I turned this corner, and then down at the end of the street was just this giant tower, the same kind of tower, and it's such an imposing thing, probably, with my hands it'll smudge the lines a little bit here, but I'm cool with it. It'll actually look cool at the end. It'll give us a little bit of like chaos in the picture. And I saw this tower, and like I said, it's kind of a very imposing thing. It feels like some kind of like obelisk. It feels like some dark thing lurking at the end of the horizon. Whether or not the stuff about them is true, it feels that way. So I'm just gonna put this like road in here, kind of channel that a little bit. And then we'll put another little house over here. Maybe if we get enough little houses, we can kind of imply the infinite feeling of the Euclidean suburbs, how it just kind of goes and goes and goes, and there's blocks and blocks and blocks. I'm torn about how much I should do in the black lines and how much I should do with the color CMYK style when we come in with that. I guess ideally, there's two kind of ways of interacting with this. It could be the lines are one thing and the color is something else, but ideally they're more integrated. Sometimes it's more roped into each other, so I don't know, we'll kind of just see how it goes over here. I do want to get something interesting going over here. I mean, I could get like a big tree, and if I play my cards right, I can use the tree as another space. Here I have a tangent about to happen, so I have to kind of come out a little bit more than I would. I'm going to come down over here. Boom, 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 perfect. So I'll have this kind of tall tree. And the nice thing about the tree is I can use that as another window to make another space. Coming in over here. And perfect. And if you've been wanting the scriptural nature of the show previously to come back, I think part of going into the American Christianity thing is going to be hitting that a little bit harder again, because, as you may or may not know, it's almost like the whole American Christian situation is like hyper focused on like interpreting scripture and stuff. So whether or not they did it correctly, I probably am going to be poking hard into that a little bit. When I was looking at the Seventh-day Adventist stuff, they're really big on like, what's the word I'm looking for? On like keeping the Sabbath. They keep it on Saturday, I'm pretty sure though. But I found a few other Christian-y things that are into like keeping the Sabbath, and it's really interesting because, I don't know, isn't that like an old covenant thing? Right? But America went so hard on that, so I don't really know what I think about that. I never really like critically analyzed it. Okay, let's get some color going on over here. The straight black and white is a little bit much, right? And last time, I think the most successful color combination was probably... I like this big picture setup, by the way. You can see the color mixing a little bit more. I think the most successful, like low-key color combo we got was these deep blue purples. Normally, I never poke into this side of the color spectrum. Not the side, but this just little node of the color spectrum. There's something about certain parts of the color spectrum. Oh my god, I want to move the camera and show you my dog so badly. Sorry, not to bring it up, but she's just like perfectly curled up in a little circle pressed against me right now. It's so cute. It's insane. So there's parts of the color spectrum that I think I kind of avoid. Maybe it's because of my, color biases or however you want to call it, but some of them just feel a little unnatural. Even if you imagine some of these colors in your mind, things like teal. Teal is a really good example. But then you have like the purpley blues. If you imagine like a purple blue, I don't know, like candy or something. I don't even know what I'm thinking of. I'm thinking of that purple blue color where you would see that naturally manifested. But there's some parts of the color spectrum I definitely avoid. But I noticed when I was re-looking at the picture we did last week that was one of the strongest parts of it. These nice like purpley blues. So maybe we'll use that a little bit. I think we're going to go a little bit kind of an atypical color scheme here a little bit. Let's see, I'll get some water going on. Maybe we can make it kind of like a night-day thing. So I'm just going to come in and do it. I don't really know how this one's going to turn out, but I think that's kind of part of what makes it exciting. If anyone wants to ask me anything in the chat, you can. Otherwise, I'm probably just going to keep talking about the interesting things that I've been thinking of. But let's see. Yeah, we can throw this blue down here, and it's super dark. Something else we didn't do last week is get the white in, so I'm going to do that right now. Usually with gouache and watercolor, you're using the paper as the white and you're playing with the opacity, letting the white come up through the paper. But here, these paints are a little bit different. So I'm going to see, if we get the white in here, maybe you can see the character of the color a little bit more. Perfect. And I'd like to go a little bit harder into the, maybe here, maybe elsewhere, but you know, I'm always thinking of a little bit down the road and things like that. This is a perfect example of the, oh, it looks really dark for you. Actually, it looks really dark on the paper also, but let's see, maybe I can come in here and lighten it up a little bit. Perfect, there we go. This is a good example of the color I was thinking of. It's kind of like deep blue purple. It's kind of like deep blue violet. Let's see, maybe we can just fade it out into like a nice sky color. I'm just going to add more white. Throw it down over here. Because the way we're looking at it, it's super night style right now. Cool. Maybe we'll have it like day over here. And normally I never use these brushes, these like wide, fat brushes. So let's just go for it. Nice. Let's get it even lighter. Someone asked, do you ever worry that valuing novelty, avoiding repetition can be too reactive, i.e., how can I avoid just being a negative of the mainstream? Like avoiding popular things and stuff like that, or like in art? I'll kind of answer that question in general. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely something that's affected my art quite a bit. I actually had like a crazy, probably to some extent pathological reaction against like anything popular or mainstream at all when I was younger, to the point where, you know, like for example, even bands like Led Zeppelin and stuff like that, I didn't even listen to Led Zeppelin until I was like 24, 25 maybe even. Nah, younger than that. I was maybe like 23. But I basically had the attitude of like, if anything is popular or accepted in the mainstream, I want nothing to do with it in any capacity. And I think that was good in some ways, because if I had one advice for like younger artists, there's something about taking in like a ton of the same media as everyone else that kind of becomes like this paralyzing force. You know, I notice that sometimes, like I'll mention, I don't know if I've mentioned this exact anecdote on here before, but sometimes I'll mention like to someone like, oh, I'm thinking about making this comic where, you know, X, Y, and Z happens and this guy, you know, and they'll be like, oh yeah, that's just like this thing that I've never heard of. It's just like some movie or just like some, you know, popular thing. And I'll be like, oh, cool. And I'll just go ahead and make it anyway, because I don't know what that is. Like, why would I care? But I think there's something about taking in a ton of like the same media as everyone else, where if you all have the same like cultural references, it becomes like paralyzing in some way. Conversely, at the same time, I definitely missed out on a lot of like good things because of that. Like when I first listened to Led Zeppelin, I was like, wow, this is actually awesome. I definitely missed out on this one. But and then within my own work, it's something that I go back and forth with a lot. I don't really have like an answer for it within my own work. Like for example, even just now when I was starting this picture, I was thinking, you know, I'm not going to use any skulls. I've been using skulls way too much. It's kind of like a crutch. I'm like, oh, what should I do? Oh, I'll use the skull. Perfect. But then I was thinking at the same time, but you know, if the situation calls for it, why should I, you know, restrain myself? Shouldn't I just go for it? So yeah, I definitely feel like it can go both ways. If you mean with terms of content within like artistic work, that's another thing, because the sword cuts both ways. Part of an artist's style isn't just the pure visual style. You know, style is something that I enjoy talking about here. Part of the style is the informational content of it. You know, what you choose to use in terms of theme and symbols and things like that. That's part of the style. But then inherently you get to a point where, like you just said, it's kind of like, well, isn't that becoming a little cliche? Shouldn't I like react against that? There's a writer that I used to really like. It's not that I don't like her anymore. I just don't really read her kind of literature anymore. But I really like this writer named Flannery O'Connor. She's a pretty famous American author. And I was reading a book of short stories of hers. And I don't know if all her short stories are like this or just the ones that I checked out. But I was reading this book of short stories of hers. And basically every single story on the last like page or two, someone died. And it got to be the point where I was reading like the third or fourth one and I was like, who's it going to be? Who's it going to be? Like someone's obviously going to die here. So I feel like in art, I almost have that sometimes where it's like, you know, you get to build up kind of like a cliche, like, oh yeah, of course you would do that. Like, of course that's like the obvious thing to do. But at the same time, you know, if that's how it is, if that's how your style is, you just kind of have to roll with it. Okay, so I got this like other tealy kind of color over here. The other kind of color I said I normally wouldn't use, but you know, I'm just gonna kind of throw it down. I'm just gonna see what's going on with like the fat colors here. I'm already kind of doing what I didn't want to do, where I'm like painting in the lines, but I don't know how to. This will be a little bit of a meta creative episode, because I don't know how to like break out of that right now. You know, I'm kind of just filling in the lines and everything, but I want to get that flow going. But I'm already locked in this mode in my mind of like, you know, what I call like dumb colors. You know, oh, I have the sky, it has to be blue, or, you know, oh, we have the bushes, it has to be green. So I have to do something to really change it up here, but I don't know exactly what that's going to be. So I have to do something a little bit powerful. Maybe I'll make, let's see, what am I going to do? I'm looking at the tree. I could use the tree in some interesting way. I'm looking at the ground. Maybe I can kind of get like yellow coming up from the background, maybe like a sunrise or something, and get the yellow in like some atypical places. I think that's what we're going to do. And someone asked, what breed is your dog? She's a blue heeler. So that means she's like part Dalmatian and part border collie and a few other dogs like mixed together. She's actually part dingo. So she's literally part like Australian wild dog, and I think that probably imparts some of her nature to her. And yeah, we've been actually people don't find this interesting, like eventually I won't have the dog like attached to my hip, but it's just been like the condition of my life for a little while. But yeah, like literally she's been like 1 or 2 feet away from me the entire time for like 2 weeks, the whole time we've had someone visiting here. So it's been pretty interesting, man. I feel like I'm getting a little bit more of like the animal consciousness. And I'm going to use this like lime greeny yellow. I'm just going to have this like spilling up into the blue. Let's just get it going. I mean, if it looks bad, it's okay. We got to get some more like excitingness going on over here. And I think the black is going to pick up a little bit, but it's all good. And I'm just going to come in. I'm going to get the tree this color too. Perfect. I was standing really far away from the paper because my dog was on my chair, but then she moved. And let's just see what happens with this. So yeah, anyway, of course, you know, being an artist, again, this is the meta creative episode. You know, your life naturally informs what's going on in your work, you know, so it's not like I can really separate the two. And I've literally had my dog like 2 feet away from me the entire time. So I feel like I've punctured into this level of like animal consciousness in a way. Sometimes what I enjoy about the dog is I talk to her. You know, I can talk to the dog and, you know, she just listens to what I'm saying, right? But sometimes what I enjoy more almost is that when I don't talk to the dog and we just enter this kind of deeper instinctual state where, you know, she doesn't know what I'm saying, obviously. And we just kind of exist in this state of like animal consciousness. And that does actually rule. It actually is really, really awesome. So I dropped down this yellow, like, frankly, kind of like highlighter-y color because I just wanted to do something that would change up the vibe. And I wanted to get the colors a little bit more mixing and flowing. The dog is really going to be the spot here that's going to decide how things go, because normally I would paint the dog white, right? But that's not very exciting for a colory picture. But then she could also be like the release from, you know, whatever other color situation I have going on. So let's kind of just see how it goes. I really like this fade. So now we're getting some interesting stuff going on. It's like the isolation of the colors that kind of locks you in. See, now we got a little interesting. This is an interesting fade over here. Cool. Perfect. And let's see what else we can get going. Maybe we can get some more interesting color in the sky. The sky is also kind of like, yeah, it's a sky, like, okay. So I'm just going to take the straight yellow. Actually, I'm going to take the red. And let's see, what if I just bring the red in over here? Perfect. So this is kind of like the experimental episodes, because even I myself don't know exactly what's going to happen. Like, for example, right now, I don't know how the magenta is going to be when I add white. So let's see what happens with that. Because the magenta, as I'm using it, has this like very, very dark, it's very dark. And when colors are dark, it's harder for them to release their nature. And the white cuts both ways. It makes the colors more chalky, but it also highlights and reveals the nature of the color a little bit more. I like that you can see what I have going on over here. Cool. I'm just going to come down here. Perfect. Yeah, it's okay. Yeah, it's okay. It's fine. Relax. Relax, Mundo. It's all good. Yeah, I know. It's okay. And I don't really know what to do with like the sky and this whole area over here. Let's see, what if I add this like transparently? A little bit of like pink going on over here. It's alright. Actually, that's kind of tight. I kind of like this like smoky, kind of cloudy look that we have going on over here. And I'm going to stop fighting the shape of the brush. I've been fighting the fact that the brush is square, but now I'm actually going to start utilizing that, and I think that is what's going to make this work. I've been kind of fighting the fact that the brush is square, trying to like blend it out, you know, but I think what I can do is take it in the other direction and do something like this. I can get this kind of nice like chunky look going on. Might be a little bit too much like that. And then I'm going to grab a little bit of this purple. So I want to make it a little bit less extreme. You know, that's like a pretty extreme gap right there. So I'm literally just going to grab the sky color and mix it in here a little bit. It's kind of like a very cheap way of doing a little opacity thing. But even that's still not enough. I thought it would be enough. You can see how purple it is over here, but you bring it over here, it doesn't even matter. You really got to like tone it down quite a bit. Let's see. Maybe this will give me what I want. Yeah, almost. Almost. We almost got it going on. Cool. Okay. So I kind of like that. It adds a little bit of that, like maybe like slightly, can't tell if we're doing like impressionist painting or like we're back in like tech world, but that's good. And the paint's wet over here, so I can push that a little bit. I can push that. You know, over here you can see it's dry. It's literally just a straight rectangle, but over here in this corner it's wet. And what I'm going to do right now actually is I'm going to come back and add this kind of chunky texture to the other areas, and I think that's going to redeem what we have going on here a little bit. It's going to maybe take us to the level that we're trying to get to. So I'm just going to come in here. Yeah, perfect. And this needs to be a lot thicker, the green that we have. It's not really doing what I want it to do. So I'm just going to grab this green. Let's put it in this blue. Perfect. The greens are so almost like acidic in the CMYK color domain. I guess we'll have to see what we can do with that. Get this going over here. Nice. Okay. I feel like this just punctured over to like a new level. Now we have something kind of like nice and interesting going on. Now we got something interesting going on. And I still left it totally open what I'm going to do in the bottom down here. I guess I'm just going to throw down some wet green. Someone said, pretty crazy how deep the connection between man and dog is. Is this like one of those weird proofs of God? Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, no, it is cool, man. Honestly, I feel like it's interesting because it definitely illuminates the sort of animal side of man. I might have used this exact quote and analogy on here before, but I had this encyclopedia. It was this encyclopedia of like every philosophical topic, and it had these introductions to the topics, and it worked alphabetically. So, you know, the first one was angel, the second one was animal, and I went through like love and time and all these different things. But it started with angel and animal. And I remember reading the introduction for the animal one, and it was such a good opener because it said, you know, we started with angel, next we have animal. If it weren't for the alphabet, man would be between these two sections. And it was describing, you know, man as this mix of like angel and animal. And something about that always really stuck with me. So there's definitely an aspect of that with the dog. Like I can tap into this kind of animal consciousness that I have. It's pretty cool. Anyway, down here, so we got green, so we can kind of push the green in two directions. It goes in yellow land, but let's see. Let's get some just blue down here too. And I'm going to add some white. I'm just really going to go with the mixing colors, not haphazardly, but I really am just going to, you know, you want the colors to all kind of like sing together in a way. So I'm also going to take some green actually and put it up here in the top. We don't want it to be like so isolated. That's really the issue that we have going on now. And you can't even really see the green, so I'm going to see how fat I can lay it down. I guess it's a little subtle, but we can put the green over these pink areas too. Yeah, this is looking pretty dope. Nice. Nice. Do you have thoughts on the connection between man and cat? I never had a cat. I think they are cool. I mean, they can be cool for sure, but I never had one. And now my wife is allergic to cats, so that's pretty much going to, you know, seal the deal on that whole realm. But I never had one. I was impressed by the intelligence of a few cats in my life, but no, I never had one. Okay, so let's see. I do want to talk about that, but I want to keep this moving a little bit. Ugh, I'm playing it so tame. That's kind of like the annoying part right now. I'm almost like frustrated with myself because I'm playing it so safe. You know, I'm looking at this and I'm like, come on, let's get it going. But with these colors, it's hard for me to know how to push it. So I'm just going to go for it, I guess. Like, see, I just mixed up this color here. Like, I thought, oh, I'll mix the magenta with the green. That's kind of weird, but I just got this kind of gray color. You see this? You see this color over here? What am I going to do with this? I don't know. Doesn't really work. So let's see. How can I keep pushing the color domain in this realm? Well, I can add the white. Maybe the white is the key that I'm looking for. I'll add the white to the green. Maybe that's the answer. I hope that part of what's interesting about the show is sometimes figuring out things on the fly, you know. We've gone a few episodes where I know exactly what's going to happen the whole time, and that's not that exciting. Yeah, maybe this is the answer. You see this color right here? Maybe this is the answer. These like brighter greens. Because if I come in here and see, look, it looks so dark though. You need it to be way brighter. This is a really beautiful color right here. There's a certain color the Impressionists use a lot that's almost like this color. I think of it as like the light color. It's like white with blue and green together. Yeah, almost like this. It's almost like white. Let's see, maybe this is the answer. Boom, boom. Looks so dark on the canvas, doesn't it? Okay, okay. We're getting there. Yeah, okay. We'll get some on the tree. We can put some up here in the darkness. Now I'm just going to start getting these bands going a little bit more. We're going to break out of like the line situation we have. We still have to color in the house. Actually, this is looking pretty cool now. We're at least doing something a little interesting. And you know, I'm just going to grab the white. I'm just going to take the white and see what happens over here. What if I just come in with the straight white? Cool. Yeah. Okay, cool. Okay, so now we got to address the color of the dog. The dog actually is white in real life. But is that the most exciting thing we can do in the world? Probably not. So I'm going to have the dog maybe reflecting the colors around it. I'm just going to kick in. Yeah, this is cool. Yeah, we'll come in here. Yeah, I know I'm painting you. I know, it's so stressful being painted. The girls like it, though. The girls like when you paint them. Maybe not the dogs, though. So I'll come in here and we'll just add this kind of shading a little bit in here. And I want to add some more interesting color, but I don't know, it's hard to get what I want. That's tight. That's dope what just happened right there. Getting the blue reflected in. We'll get the shading reflected in. Yeah, that looks good. Okay, and I'm going to see what happens if I get the green up against the purple. Yeah. When you're doing sort of like, I'm not doing like Impressionist style right now, I would never say that, but when you are, getting the shadows packed with color, that's how you really get it going. That's really like the Cezanne, kind of like Impressionist-y move. Like even down over here, even right here, you can really see, I should make that color area bigger, but I don't want to make the classic rookie mistake of like overemphasizing something just because it looks cool. That's a classic like painter mistake. But you can see that getting those colors packed in the shadows, that's like the money, man. That's like what you really want. So actually that looks pretty cool. I didn't really expect doing sort of an Impressionist dog thing, but sometimes you don't expect things. And I'm going to come back in. Let's get this street in the back. Shade it in a little bit. Oh, the color didn't even pick up. Yeah, there we go. That's perfect. That looks really good. I love that like fade right there. We're going to have to paint in the tower. I'm going to grab maybe the red. Let's see what happens if I get the red in here. We got a little black in there too. Maybe this is good. I'm just going to come in and paint it in. It's almost like a plum color in the distance. Perfect. Okay, relax, relax. Come here, come here, come here, come here, Dingo. She's like, why am I in this tiny room? She's like, I'm a freaking border collie. I'm not supposed to be in this tiny room with you, human. But it's all good. She'll get out soon. Okay, and now I want to paint in the house. Right now I've made a classic painter mistake. I made a classic painter mistake right now because I left this house white. And this is such a big part of the picture that I've sort of put myself in an unideal position because whatever happens with the house is going to really decide the quality of the picture. So now it's like I kind of boxed myself into a corner. Ideally, the whole picture develops like a Polaroid slowly. I use that metaphor like probably every week on the show. But now what I've done is I've developed everything else and left this thing front and center. Boom. Right in the front. You really don't want to do that, but I did it. And I'm not going to cry about it too much. So I'm wondering if I want to get the red and yellow mixed in together up here in the front, or if that's going to be, another mistake. Because the red is going to really change the color scheme. Am I working with like a brick house here in the front? If I could port this color right over, that would be perfect. But I got to just be bold. I can't worry about messing it up, so I'm just going to go for it. And we're going to come in and paint in the windows also. Another bright color. We'll make the windows like reflecting the sky and stuff like that. Cool. Someone said I thought your dog was blue. No, it's white. Hold on, I'm just going to pick up my dog and put her on this chair. Hold up. Cool. I go really hard to make the show professional every week. Okay, perfect. Let's see, maybe I do want to lean into the red of the house. I kind of like that it's giving us like a reprieve from the rest of the cool colors. I thought I wouldn't like it standing out like that, but I actually really do. Actually really do a lot. It's unintentionally like almost like a suburban homage kind of thing we have going on. And we got a little bit of the watercolor texture. It's like bleeding out. It's pretty tight. Okay. I got to get a door color, so I'm going to add a little bit of the blue over here. I want a little bit more of a neutral color for the door. Perfect, perfect, perfect. Perfect. Literally perfect. For some reason, I always imagine these doormats being white. I mean, being orange, but maybe I'll make it that kind of like bright orange color. Yeah, someone said face dox your dog. Yo, honestly, dude, you don't even know how badly I want to do that. But I can't because my female cousin puts photos of my dog all over her social media all the time. But I thought about it. I could be that guy. People post their dogs on social media sometimes, like on Twitter, even though they're anonymous, but I'm not going to be that guy. Okay, and I want to get all the colors we have from the windows, like they're reflecting in the windows. So I'm just going to put in the sky color, and I thought I'd be able to come over and quickly grab the green, but I didn't really have it ready, so let's just see how much I can get that going. I want the windows to be like reflecting what's going on around them. I could try and pull off the trick I did last week where I dried up, and that let me come in with the light, with the lightness. Let's see how that works. I'm like neutral on how that looks. I really do want that color in there. Boom. Boom. Okay. Perfect. Perfect. Yeah, it's looking pretty good. Okay. This is looking pretty good. This is looking pretty good. We probably have like 12, 15 more minutes. This will be like a flash. Not a flash, but like a total painting start to finish. Oh yeah, the tree. I gotta do the tree. Let's see, what else can I tell you guys? Anything else crazy going on with me? Honestly, man, like I really should not talk about it, but I have something that's totally insane that's been flipping my life upside down. Good news, but I can't tell you. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of a hint. I can't tell you yet, if you know what I'm saying, but I really shouldn't go too much into it. But I do have a lot of crazy stuff going on. It's been kind of a maturing week, looking at houses, trying to step it up in lots of other ways. And I'm going to come in and paint in this tree, and then we'll see where we're at. I want to get some of the purples in on this tree, too. In the studio, I got some cool stuff going on. I got the next run of the rosary prints coming up, and I had to pick a color scheme. And I think I'm going to settle on this. Man, this looks dope. This green flow right here on this kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Sunset-y color scheme for the rosary. Okay, we'll come in here. Boom, boom. Boom. Perfect. Okay. We're killing it right now. This looks really dope. Okay. Last things that have to happen before we start seeing, assessing what's going on right now. I'm going to come in with the roof color. We'll grab a little black. We haven't done that yet. I'm going to grab a little black. Cool. Perfect. Yes, literally the perfect color. This kind of smoky. I used to work in an art store and they sold this pigment called smelt blue. I don't know if that's actually a color, but it was exactly this hue. And I always think of it when I use this irony, kind of like dark blue. Perfect. I'll come in with a little bit of the darker colors. Boom, 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 boom. Perfect. And maybe that's a little bit too much. I don't want to look like I'm trying too hard with the texture here. Yeah, that's perfect actually. Nice. And I'm also going to fade the dog's leg. It's just too white. It's just too bright, like singing out over there. Okay, otherwise, this is looking sick. The dog does have spots, and I feel like it's a cop-out if I don't put the spots in. This will be a good like hour painting session show. You know, like I say almost every week, part of the reason why I started the show, really the dog's spot would go right here. Perfect. She also has a spot on her tail. Perfect. She also has a spot. Really her ears are black, but I'm not going to paint that in because we got this dope shadow on the ears. She has a few spots like here. And I got to put the dog's eyes in. For that I need the sharp brush, and I'm going to put them in straight black. But yeah, part of the reason why I started the show is I want other people to feel empowered to just jump into painting and being creative and stuff. So it's good for us to do some episodes like this where it's like, boom, opened up, you know. It'll be less than an hour, honestly. But you can just go for it. You can just jump in and take what's on your mind and put it out there. Okay, I got to put the dog's eyes in. I'm just going to go for normal eyes. I mean, sometimes I, put like a weird symbol or something in where the eyes are, but we kind of played this one a little bit straight, illustration-wise. I actually really like it a lot. Let's see, do I want both eyes in? Yeah, we have her facing forward enough that we can get both eyes in. Boom. Nice. Cool, man. This looks good. Nice. Oh, nice. That's really funny. Okay, cool. So now let's see. We got those in, so I'm going to come back in and put the rest of the spots in. And, since it is, a spiritual art show, it's really kind of the nature of it. There is something about, taking what's in your mind. I got to put more spots in because that is actually what the spots look like, but it looks out of place because I haven't, truly illustrated her spots in the way that they really are. I guess I got to come in. Dang, I really didn't want to put the ears in black, but I guess I have to. But it looks better. It looks better that way because that's what the dog actually looks like. You can kind of tell if it's unnatural, but in general, I wanted to leave those cool shadows in. But anyway, since it is a, how should we say it, esoterica inclined, a spirituality inclined Christian painting show, there is something, intrinsically spiritual about, taking what's in your mind and just putting it out onto a canvas or something so you can look at it. It's almost a good example of sometimes I talk about African art or things like that, or quote unquote primitive art. So one time I'll bow to the, things you're supposed to say because I actually don't really think of it as primitive art, but African masks are a really good example, It's people taking something that's in their mind or they don't think of it as in their mind, but some force that's affecting their life or something. Man, I'm loving this light, the very subtle. See how subtle it is? Man, did you see that? It was so tight. Getting just a little bit of the light pink and it almost dissolves into the purple shadow. Oh, so good. You can feel that warmness and reflected light in the shadow. I might do it too much because I like it so much. In fact, I do want it. I want it right here. I want it next to the eye. Even more. It's not enough for me. We need to even more. These little details are what's going to make the picture. There we go. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. You want the dark areas to be packed with color. That's one way that you can jump into making interesting painting stuff. If you're starting painting on your own, you don't really know what to do. There's a Cezanne image that I used to have hanging up in my old studio, and it's a Cezanne image. I'm actually going to show you right now. If you hung out this long in the show and you made it all the way here, I'm going to show you really quick because it's a really, really good art tip thing. And I'm going to use this notepad right over here. Who cares? So I saw this. This is like a hack, you can say, if you start doing art and stuff. So I saw this Cezanne image. And actually, fittingly enough, it was a skull. So let's say I'm just going to quickly draw a skull right now. This will be worth it. It's like a skull sitting on a table. I'm just going to draw it kind of the way that I draw it, but it's like an accurate picture of a skull. And I don't know if we've talked about shadow shapes or not, but when an object is lit, you get these shadows. If you don't know what shadow shapes are, check out the tutorial on my website. So let's say, this is a shadow shape, and then the shadows come over here, and then, there's shadows underneath every tooth, let's say. Maybe there's a big shadow over here. This part's in shadow too. This part's in shadow too. And normally, you'd come in, let's say you're drawing, you paint in the shadow shapes black, let's say. So you can even see right now, I'm holding this above the paper. I'm not really doing a great job. But you can see it'll start to look like a skull, actually. Come in here. Boom. Got this part up here. So these are what the shadow shapes are. And this Cezanne image, I had it sitting in the studio. Actually, you can get it even more because really there would be a shadow shape right here too. And that's what will make it look a little bit more like it's sitting on something. And then you could tone the background up a little bit. So you can already tell it's like something at least sitting on a surface, right? Maybe I could have done this a little bit better. The point though is that the Cezanne image, Cezanne's a French painter, I had it hanging up in the studio because what I realized while I was looking at it is all the picture was just all the shadow shapes were just pumped with almost like rainbow color, just pumped in. So it was a white page and all the shadows were just pumped with the maximum amount of like technicolor, visual, stimulating color. And I was like, wow, you can get a lot of mileage out of that. And I did a bunch of art for a long time where I would just take the shadows and just pump them with color and do nothing in the light. If you look at the still life drawing tutorial on my site, that's part of what it says is you can get away with, and not only get away with, but you can really simplify the visual process by just working in the shadows and leaving the light alone, or doing the opposite, leaving the light alone and working in the shadows. This is a pretty this object isn't, this painting isn't lit, with like classical like 3D lighting. But still, you can get a lot out of doing that. If you don't know what to do and you're starting a still life or something like that, I made this still life once with these apples and mangoes on this table, and I just did that. You just pump the color, even colors that you're not seeing, just pump the color into the shadows. It really impresses people because it's like, oh, that looks real. It looks like an apple, but it's different somehow. Like it's so, it's a nice like little trick you can say. So anyway, sometimes I get a kick out of that, just like pumping up the color in the dark areas. Anyway, though, that was a good little monologue. But I think this is looking pretty solid. I really honestly did not think we were going to end up making a picture of my dog. Finally, she's sitting in her chair. I got this chair over here. She has freaking an armchair in my studio. There's literally a giant armchair with a blanket on it. It's like her chair. And finally, she fucking chilled out. Sorry, I didn't mean to curse. Cool. Okay, I'm going to look away for a second, but I think we're pretty good. I think we're pretty good on this right now. I might come in and add a little light into the windows. But yeah, maybe as a little closing thought. We're only going to do an hour right now. But also the thing is we actually did just wrap it up anyway. I would keep going, but I got to do the little medallion. But there is something inherently, I guess you could say, illuminating about the spiritual life. Let's put it that way. By taking what's in your mind and putting it out into a picture. The cool thing, everyone is like, oh, modern art's like the worst. Everyone hates modern art. Like, I get it. But even if it's not figurative, even if it's not a picture of something, if you're like angry about something or, something's not going well in your life or whatever, and you just take a bunch of colors and it's like black and red and you're just like expressing yourself that way, even if you don't show anybody, it does make you feel better. Or it's a way of like exploring your feelings. You know what I mean? We have these words and terms for the sensations that we feel in the spiritual domain, but there's like an infinite gradation there. It's infinitely subtle. And by using art, you can kind of capture that in other ways, There's no exact like verbal quantification of every single thing that goes on, like, in your mind and in your like spirit basically. And sometimes I think depicting things and giving them form with symbols and stuff like that allows you to sort of go a little bit deeper into that. It's just my art teacher mode. I'm not an art teacher, but if I was like an elementary school or middle school art teacher, that's what I would pump. But it is true, for real. And you can buy, really cheap paints or something. I want to do an episode on like stuff you can buy, but no matter how much money you have, you can pick up something and do some cool art with it, And you don't have to show anybody either if you don't want to. So I'm just going to put this kind of like glow here in the windows. I just can't resist. I can't resist getting a little bit of the glow in. I'm going to add the dark up at the top. Just a little bit. I'm sort of playing a dangerous game coming in with this small brush because I don't want to give too much of a different texture. We have a nice like uniform texture going on here. Let's see. Oh yeah, now you're chilling out. Now you're relaxing on your blanket. Talking to my dog. Boom, 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 boom. A little bit of the green in the windows reflecting the green light. You can't even really see it. It's not really enough. There we go. Perfect. All right, and here's the big question. The really big question is, do I put the shine in the animal's eyes? Do I put the shine in the animal's eyes? I really like the dark eyes. They're really like speaking to me almost. But just for the sake of, you know, you came all the way here with me. You came all the way here. Let's see what kind of difference it makes. Oh my God, it's still wet, so I can't put it in. It's still wet. Well, I guess it was just decided for us. If it's dry, I can come in and poke it with the white dot. But I kind of like the dark. I'm worried that if I put the white dot in, we call it a specular highlight because it's a speck. I don't think that's why it's called that, but the hell you can remember it's a specular highlight. I think it would just draw the attention too much. I kind of like, you know, sometimes when you get this kind of colory situation going on, it's good to have the eyes just like wash over and it's not really clear, you know, what the specific note is. We also have the most contrast already at the eye, so it's already good. All right, so I'm gonna look away for a second, see what people ask me, and then we'll wrap it up probably. Any specific quick brush, paint, paper advice on a semi-tight budget to start? If you're on like the lowest, I don't mean low tier, like you're a low tier individual. I'm sure you're a very worthwhile and excellent person, but if you're in the lowest tier of budget stuff, it's not really going to matter that much, honestly. You could just go to an art store or art supply store near you and get like the cheapest stuff, honestly. If you're not going to go in person, ordering stuff online, basically what you're going to see is there's stuff called student grade. Student grade means like it's cheaper and it's made, they say it's made for students, but who cares who buys it? It's student grade. And then you'll get like professional or artist grade. But if you're just like, you know, I'm some random person, I just want to try this out, I guess, you know, and you don't want to spend money, if you can spend money and you want to jump in more seriously, the more money you spend, the better the materials you'll get, and then you'll be more satisfied and you'll enjoy it more and be able to do better stuff. But at the same time, if you're like totally broke, you know, I had like $80 in my bank account, you know, at certain points, right? So then if you spend $50 on art supplies, and then you're really scared of like wasting the money and you never use them, that's totally non-productive too, right? So sometimes you can spend $5, sometimes you can spend $100, right? But I don't have any specific, we have to talk about like specifically like what you were trying to do, but that's part of why I really like gouache. I think it's easy to get started with, but actually the cheapest way I think to get set up doing cool stuff is to get a cheap set of watercolor pencils and watercolor paper. Maybe one brush like this. This is like a size 8. Or a size 12, doesn't matter. And that's basically it. With watercolor pencils, a brush, and watercolor paper, you're set up to do legit, real watercoloring stuff. That's separate from like learning to draw, like getting, you know, drawing pencils or even just ballpoint pen and drawing stuff. But that's a really good way to crack into doing art stuff. Watercolor pencils, a brush, and watercolor paper. You can DM me if you want. In fact, if you are going to buy something, you should DM me on Twitter just so I could like, frankly, like look it over and make sure you're not getting like ripped off. That's like the private language dilemma. Is it really even possible to find out how you feel without being influenced by a language? Yeah, it is. It is very crazy. We have to use the terms other people give us, but not in art. In art, we can use the symbols from real life and arrange them how we see fit. So let's see. I'm going to move the paint over here, so we can just look at the image on its own. And I think we're gonna wrap this up. Let's see what it looks like on its own though. We gotta see it without the clouding of the... Someone sent me this pen, by the way. This is a very casual episode. I hope that's cool with you. I hope you had a good time. This is a very casual episode. Normally, honestly, I'm very paranoid about prepping and making everything perfect. And like if something goes wrong, I'm like, oh my God, I gotta bring the people. But this is very casual. I hope you had a good time. But someone sent me this pen. Isn't that cool? Someone from Florida sent me this Catholic Florida ministry pen. And I use it because I really like Florida. And I think it's cool. I've had it for like 2 years. So it's kind of cool. I think it's like 2 years. And they also sent me, I'm not going to show it because it says what university. Maybe this says too, but I didn't say his name. It doesn't matter. But he sent me a rosary in the Florida University colors. And I was like, wow, I have an esoteric Florida rosary. How good does it get? How good does it get? You can't complain. You can't complain sometimes. Anyway, so yeah, recap. I think this went really well. I think it's kind of a tight jump in, jump out, hour, explore. I had no idea what was going to happen, what was going to go down. So yeah, some of the episodes, I kind of want them to be that way, just going off an idea, going what's in your mind. And it's not like, I'm doing like, oh, this is my magnum opus. But like I said, because I'm kind of repeating myself, but, I really like encouraging other people to participate in the creative process. I think it's really good for you. And that's basically it, honestly. We could wrap it up. I think this one went really well. Anything artistic, I should say? Not really. We haven't really explored the chunky painting thing. Maybe we'll push that a little bit next episode. Like sometimes I like to use the episodes, like, there's this art metaphor I kind of built up in my mind where, like, if you ever see ice climbers, like real ice climbers, part of what they do is, like, one will go up a little bit and kind of lock in, and then the other one will go up a little bit further and lock in, the other one will go up a little bit further and lock in. So maybe we can kind of use the CMYK painting episodes like that and see how it goes. We were like, oh, we need to mix the colors, and now I'm like, oh, the texture. Maybe the texture is part of how we'll push things forward. So maybe next week we'll start with that knowledge, like, oh, the texture is part of the way to go. Let's see how much forward we can go. So yeah, that's basically it. We're going to get back to, like, the text and scripture and all that stuff on here eventually, but I thought I'd mix it up, and honestly, yeah, it's been kind of a crazy week. I'll tell you guys why eventually, but I can't right now. And that's the tale. That's the tale this week. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for putting up with my dog. Thanks for sticking with Owen Broadcast Studios during this atypical time. But this week, my house guest leaves, and then I go back to normal. So that's basically the story. So I hope your week is going well. I hope your life is going well. And I hope if it's not, that you're using that for good. We shouldn't waste these spiritual struggles that we have. We shouldn't waste them. We should use them to better ourselves. That's what I'm trying to do. Hope that's something you can do also. And I will see you guys on the internet where we all hang out. Thanks for coming through, and I'll catch you guys later.